Welcome to part 1 of creating an Australian native beehive. Hi, Pat here. I just want to share with you about the Australian native beehive. Now behind me I have a long piece of wood that's cut up into the sections that you will need for your beehive. I don't know anything about beehives, but I'm learning really fast because one of my students want to learn how to do it. So I'm going to step you through it, and hopefully you'll get enough information out of this video and these photos to be able to build your own and attract those cute little bees to your garden. See you in the next bit. So I won't go into all the details about what type of wood you need, but you do need the dimensions to be very specific. This is pine, just radiated pine, I believe. You can use hoop pine or plywood. This is 25 mil thick and it's 200 mil wide across. We've put all the pieces together. All these components will make up a beehive with 3 stories. I don't think that's what you say, but I'm going to call them stories. 3 stories. And and you'll see I really like the way it's been cut. It's sort of broken the rules a little bit for you woodworkers who know about grain. You'll find here on this piece here that we're going to use as the center front. Sorry, it's upside down, isn't it? There we go. So we'll just start here with our base plate. That's got the long grain going that way. Top plate. Now the top plate, the top back, the top front, the center back, the base front, and this one are all cut across the grain, which means if they weren't so thick, if they weren't that 25, they'd be actually quite weak and would break or crack along here. But the rules are broken, one, because you get much more out of your wood, out of your piece of timber, you get much more. And 2, it is strong enough because the 3 stories are sort of wedged together. So it's not a problem, I believe. I did worry about it at first, but I actually think it's quite clever the way the timber's been used. But you might have your own ideas, and you might use ply, which eliminates any of that worry of these not being strong. So then you notice as we come down, we've got the other sides cut, are ripped. We've got 200 across here, and then it's a rip down the center to make these 4 pieces. And the last 2 are a little bit narrower. So that all works out to be 1765 millimeters plus the cuts. You've got to remember your saw cut might be, if you're using a Japanese saw, it might only be half a mil or a mil. But if you're using a nice big beefy saw blade on your drop saw, then it might be up to 3 millimeters. So you've got to allow for that each cut and add to your 1765. Okay, I think that's that bit. This demonstration piece of timber is 25 millimeters thick. We'll be using ply that's 30 millimeters thick. Okay, these are the extras. So we have a 3.8 piece of ply. That sounds very specific. Just a piece of ply. It doesn't have to be really specific in its size. It's just a thin piece of ply. A couple of holes in it. Some people do it differently to others. My friend was saying that these holes get gummed up. The bees actually seal them over. So every now and again she's got to poke them through so that they can use this as a doorway. But you can decide what you want. I don't think it's specific. This is the little door front, and it's got a hole in it, and this is a piece of PVC piping. You can cut this stuff with a hacksaw, probably any saw will do. It might chew it up a bit, but it won't matter. And it's got a long screw through it. And that is to put on the side of the beehive, so you can screw it to your beehive and then put what they call them, a stake through them. Oh, you know, those angle iron stakes. You'll know what I mean. And then you'll be able to stand up your beehive anywhere in the bush or on your property where you need quite sturdily, and you'll be able to move it as well. So there's 3 little extras, plus the screws. They're 50mm screws. They're going to rust out eventually. Hopefully you will paint the outside of this really robustly with paint that's non-toxic to the bees, obviously, and protects from the sun. These are little clips, well, they're not clips, they're just little plates that tie the beehive, each story together. And if you know about bees, you'll know what I'm talking about. My friend who's a nurse, really cool, is going to use a tourniquet. I've seen people use all sorts of straps and things to tie the beehive down. But you don't need to know any of that, because if you're interested in bees, you will have found out all of that. I'm just here to talk about the actual construction of it. 25mm to 45mm thick is the recommended use for Australian native beehives. We found it really tricky to get 25 in a solid wood without getting someone to machine it up. We found that Bunnings didn't carry that. They only carried the 30mm ply, so we got a 60mm sheet by 2250, I think, and that gave us 3 beehives for about $60. But you might find someone in your local area, the building suppliers often will have 25mm ply in big sheets, and sometimes they don't cut it. So just figure out what you can fit in your car and what you can't. The properties of insulation are really important, and of course how they're going to go in the weather. So do your homework. We have settled on the 30mm ply, which compromises on the inner measurements of the beehive, which should be 150. We ended up with 140. We hope they don't mind.